Hello everyone, and welcome to a beginner's guide to reel-to-reel. Now, a couple things before we begin. If you don't know what reel-to-reel is, this is not the video for you. If you know what reel-to-reel is and you're very familiar with how it works, this is also not a video for you. But some things that we're going to be going over in the video are how to create shows, how to customize your show, and how to properly use the editor, as well as a couple other minor things. If any of those sound like something that interests you or something you need help with, then this is going to be a great video for you. Now that we've got that out of the way, we can finally begin. First things first, I just want to say this video is completely unscripted, so the flow probably isn't going to be the best. I'm sure I'm going to repeat things and stutter and so on, but I will try to edit out all of that the best I can. Now, some prerequisites you'll need is, of course, a copy of the latest build of Reel-to-Reel, which you can find in my Discord server, link in the description. If you've joined my server, or are already in it, and you're looking for the build, it is in the pins in the Reel-to-Reel channel. A lot of people seem to not know where to look for it, so I'll say it again. It is in the pins in the Reel-to-Reel channel in my Discord server, link in the description. I'll also put a card in the corner of the video right here. If you click that, it'll take you to my Discord server. Anyhow, with that out of the way, let's jump into the settings. The boring part. Now, this is something very important to keep in mind with Reel-to-Reel, especially the latest build. The latest build added H-Trace and Ray Tracing, which do take a huge toll on your system. So if you have a lower-end PC or a laptop, I highly recommend either turning these down or completely off. Now, I have a fairly decent gaming PC. I'll put my specs up on screen for those who are interested. I'm aware it's not the best thing on the market, but it gets the job done. And it can't even run ray tracing in any capacity. Not the performance version, and especially not the quality. So if your specs are similar to mine, try these settings out for size and see how it runs. If your game still isn't hitting the performance you want it to, I would just recommend lowering all of the settings until you find what you're looking for. You can also try using windowed mode and shrinking the window. I've noticed that helps a lot for lower-end computers. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's move on to the actual game. Also, I apologize for all of the planes in the background. I'm sure you'll hear some throughout the course of the video. Anyhow, the current maps in Reel-to-Reel are the Winchester store, which only has Portrait Pasquale, the Coozer store, which has Coozer Chuck, Cyberamics, aka Tully, which of course has the Cyberamics. However, only Chuck has cosmetics. The 3-stage, which has full cosmetics, aside from some props. The AAM, which is completely useless, as you can't program it and it has no current animatronics. And seeing as the game is discontinued, I don't think it ever will. And Studio C, which has, well, the Studio C Chuck bot and a rather unfinished Studio C Alpha stage. For the purposes of this video, I'll just be using the 3-stage. Now when you press the start button, it may take a minute to load. Just wait it out, and you'll be brought to the stage. If you look around, you'll notice there's not much else besides the stage and these two panels. Now let's first look at the live editor. This contains the sound tab, the show tab, and the camera. The sound tab lets you adjust the volume of the music, the volume of the sounds, the volume of onstage sounds, and turn 3D sound on and off. Personally, for programming, I prefer 3D sound off, but that's just a preference. If we head back, we look at the show tab, where we can force open the curtains. And we can turn on the tech lights. We can adjust the PSI, which is essentially the speed your characters will move at. Though I highly recommend keeping it at the default, because I have seen so many videos where people run their shows on 100 or even higher PSI, and most of the time it looks like garbage. If you really insist on kicking the speed up a notch, I would make 100 PSI your absolute maximum. Now, physics bones. If you're experiencing a lot of lag, or some of the characters' parts are jittering around, namely Pasquale's arms, try turning off physics bones. What these normally do is add realistic physics to the character's movements, but if you're on a very low-end PC, it's probably not a good idea to have them on. And then we have pre-CU signals. Now for time purposes, I'm not really going to dive into what this means, but most of the time you're just going to want to keep this off. If we click on the button that says bit viz, this shows the movement bits that are active when playing or recording a show. For instance, if I open up Chuck and I press his mouth, as it opens and closes, you will see the bit turn on and off. Now, if you don't know what any of this is, don't worry, I'm gonna dive into that later in the video. You don't have to worry about that right now. Now, if we back out of here, you can click on Flow Controls, where you can create unique flows for each character. You can make some ridiculously goofy ones, or maybe make the characters move really realistically. Or you could even match them to your local store, and try to see how well you can get these characters to move like the ones at your local. Anyway, if we head over to the camera tab, this is where the least stuff is. We can turn on camera filters. I'll just quickly run through them all here. There's some VHS filters, some other filters, black and white, weird, security camera, bright, which is helpful if you're trying to see without turning on your flashlight, fairy, and that's it. We head all the way back, put it back to normal, and if we turn on smooth camera, your camera will move very smoothly. This is not me doing this with my mouse. I don't even think I'm capable of moving my mouse this smoothly. This is the game smoothing the camera movement. So if you want to film a realistic VHS style video, I would recommend turning on smooth cam and choosing one of the VHS filters. That's about as good as you can get in the base engine, but if you really want to amp it up, I would highly recommend using some video editing to make it look even more authentic. However, that's a can of worms for another day, so let's just move on to more features in the game. Now let me first touch on the controls, since I really haven't said anything about that yet. You can use the arrow keys and WASD to move, as in most games. You can press the space bar to jump, which is only useful in some situations. You probably won't be jumping too much, since this is a animatronic simulation, not a Mario game. And a very important feature is you can turn on your flashlight with E. Now the tech lights and even the bright filter are really helpful for seeing the bots, but if you really just want to see every detail, I highly recommend turning on your flashlight. Usually when I'm programming, I have the flashlight on, as I program the characters first and then the lights second. Now, speaking of programming, let me show you the shows. If we open up this panel over here, you'll see Customize, Play, and Record. If we hit Customize, we can edit the stage, do multiple variations. Choose whichever one floats your boat. If we head over to Edit Characters, we can customize our characters to a limited degree. This is a good example here. So there were some bugs in the final build of the reel-to-reel engine. Sometimes the curtains get stuck. If this happens, you can press escape, which brings up your menu. There's some stuff in here, but you really don't need to worry about it. Maybe if you guys really want me to go in deep on this game, I'll make a part 2 where I show you more stuff like this. But if the curtains get stuck, you can always just press escape on your keyboard and hit quit to title. And you'll load back out, and then you just simply click load map and start once again. Now make sure to save any progress on your show before doing this. So that's the basics of customization. Now if we head over to play, this is where you can play your shows. Now show tapes and segments are very different. I usually refer to segments as shows just because nobody really programs full show tapes in reel-to-reel. People have done it, but it's not very, what's the right word? It's not very intuitive. Programming a segment at a time is already a huge task. However, if you have a show tape, the way it works is it's essentially just a bunch of segments in a folder that are labeled in a certain order. So, for example, it'll be segment 01 song name, segment 02 song name, and they're all going to be comprised into a folder. If you press play on the folder, it'll play the segments in the order that you named them. So if you're interested in making a show tape, then that is a more advanced technique that you can build off of the segment. Now, going to segments, which is something you'll be using almost every time you use the RR engine, we can play a segment here, which is just a file that the game creates that has programming data and audio. I'll play one of the shows that I have created. So this is Turn the Beat Around, a show that I painstakingly programmed only to learn that we actually already have official data for. Now, data is CEC signals that can be played in reel-to-reel, that were actually ran on real animatronics. That's, again, another thing that I would cover in more detail in a future video if you're interested. But anyway, right now if we pull up the panel again, you'll see we have a new set of controls. We can pause the show. Everything freezes just how it was when you paused it. And you can also, if I unpause here, you can rewind the show at various speeds. See how they're going backwards. It'll play the movements backwards, it'll play the audio backwards. If you hit that, it'll play forward again, and then of course you can fast forward also at various speeds, and it'll have the same effect. You can loop your show, and loop it just one time. And then these buttons down here by the playhead are to skip around if you actually have a full show tape file. And you can also hit the squiggly line key on your keyboard if that makes sense. I really don't know what it's called. If I can figure out the name of it, I'll put it up on the screen and maybe have a funny TTS voice. Say it. I don't know.
Tilde.
Yeah, that thing. So you can press that to pause your show, and you can also press the tab key to make these panels go away. So this is very useful for if you want a far out shot and you want it to look slightly more realistic or just better comprised than having these big clunky panels in the way. Very useful for filming videos. Again, I'm not going to get into the recording side of things. That's not really even an RR thing, but I mean, if you guys really, really want to see me talk about that, then again, maybe in a future video. However, we're going to get in the part that you all came here for, the record button. So if you hit record, you can either hit new recording or edit recording. If you're starting a brand new show tape, you're going to want to hit new recording. Now, this is where you create a segment. I refer to segments as show tapes, so if you hear me say show tape or show, that's probably what I'm referring to unless I specify otherwise. So for creating segment, you're going to want the WAV file that we mentioned earlier. I have my demo file here. It's just a simple 26-second Chuck E. Cheese Happy Birthday song. So I'm going to open that up, and now you'll notice what happened. Nothing happened. You have to hit finish. And if you're gonna be making a lot of segments or show tapes in the future, I highly recommend making a folder on your computer for them, whether that be on your desktop or just located on your hard drive, just anywhere where you can easily access it. Now you just want to give your show tape a unique name. I'm just gonna call mine CEC Birthday. I'm gonna press enter, or you can alternatively click the save button on your file explorer. Okay. So now that I have created my file, it's going to bring me to this menu. So you got edit segment, which is delete bits and replace audio. This is something you're not going to use very often. For deleting bits, I recommend using the editor instead of this interface. So later on in the video, we'll discuss the editor. And I'm going to be completely honest, I have never used the replace audio feature. It's just not something I've ever had a need for, so maybe I'll learn about it, and again, if there's ever a part 2, I'll discuss it more. A vast majority of the time, you're going to want to hit add to segment, and now this is where you actually program your show. So the first thing you're going to want to do, I mean, there is no first step. You can really program a show any way you want. And this is the artistic side of things. Everybody is going to have their own style of programming. Everybody's gonna have their own way of doing it. There's no right or wrong. But there are a few tips I would recommend. Let's just use Chucky as an example. So, again, in our lovely reel-to-reel engine, the curtains have frozen, so instead of me closing out, let me just get a little up close with the Chuckster here. I know that it's very bright, but just bear with me here. So, now you're going to want to make him move somewhat realistically, right? The aim of these animatronics is not to make them look like FNAF characters, where they blink and open their mouths and flail their arms and heads in creepy ways. That's not what we're trying to do here. This is not how you want to program an animatronic. For the mouth, you want to open it on every syllable. So if he says, "Hi, I'm Chuck E. Cheese," he's gonna go, "Hi, I'm Chuck E. Cheese." Not, "Hi, I'm Chuck E. Cheese." I see many videos where they just let the mouths hang open, and I see that as very lazy programming. Almost no effort put in, because the mouth is one of, depending on how familiar you are with the song, it may or may not be hard, but usually it's a pretty tough part to get right. And the eyes, again, you can program them separately, but there's also a key that blinks them both at the same time for most characters. Again, this is not really a process I want to delve too deep into in this video, but I could have a whole video just dedicated to programming tips and tricks. If you guys are interested in learning how I program my shows and you want to program a show like mine, then I could teach you some good programming tips, but as of right now, I'm not really gonna go too much deeper into the programming. Just do your best to make it look good. That's all I can really say. We don't need any more Little Timmy Chuck E. Cheese shows out there. We already have too many. And in case you're wondering how is making Chuck move, each movement is assigned a key on your keyboard. Once you get into this character menu here, when you click edit, add to segment I mean, and you click on your respective character. They all have slightly different menus, of course. For Chucky, mouth R, eyes right is 5, left ear is 6, so on. Now, the way you want to do this is you don't want to just do a mashup of every movement at once. You don't want to be slamming your keyboard, trying to move everything at the same time, because that's going to look awful. If you want to program your show well, it's going to be a meticulous process. You can possibly do a couple movements at a time, but if you really want to refine your show, I recommend only doing 1 or 2 at a time, 2 being almost the maximum. I'd probably say you should do 2 as the maximum. If you get skilled enough, you can start doing more, but you gotta be able to multitask and make it look good on all fronts. So for beginners, I would recommend just doing 1 movement at a time, perhaps 2 if they go together, something like the ears, because you don't want to move the ears separately. That would look kind of odd. So, you just hit 6 and 7 at the same time, in beat with the music or relevant to whatever the character is saying. Again, this is getting more into programming, so essentially all you want to do is just, if he says, "Hi, I'm Chuck E. Cheese," you press 44444, and then you click. Okay. Let me give you a demo of how you would program a character. So I'm just going to open the curtains and turn on the tech lights because I'm not interested in programming curtains or lights right now, but at some point in the show process, that is something you should do. You don't have to, but you should. Now, I've just got this show here, so I'm gonna do 1 movement at a time on Chucky. Very slowly, it looks better and better, but you have to take your time if you want a good finished product. So I'll show you a demonstration here. If I start with the CEC birthday show I made.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. That's it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday from Chuck.
Okay. Now, I did not do everything right, and that's partly because this is just a demonstration, and it was a 1-try thing, but I hope that gets the point across. So after I do that, you would click Finish, then you'd head to your file, and I'm gonna be honest, usually I just overwrite the current file, but if you want to be smart, you could make backups. You don't have to make a backup every time you add movement, but just every time you've got something that you're not willing to lose, I'd say create a backup. I really don't care about this too much, so I'm just gonna overwrite the current file. You hit yes if you want to replace it. So that is essentially how it goes, and then over time you're just gonna add more and more. So we got his eye movements here. Here we go. Got his eye movements. So now we're gonna program that, and that's essentially how you program a show. You just build on it and build on it and build on it until you've got something like I showed earlier, something good. So those are the basics of programming in this area. That is essentially the cut and dry, bare bones of what you need to know for making a show. Of course, there are curtains. You can close them, you can open them. See, I'm opening and closing chucks. There's a close key, there's an open key. You program this the same way you program the characters. And of course, there's also lights. You've got, different lights for each stage. Chucky has a star, he has a neon sign, he has TV lights, he has floodlights. So you want to program these. You don't have to program each individual light. You don't have to go red or red, and then save, and then blue, blue, blue. You can do these all at once. But for the characters, I'd recommend taking your time. Anyhow, those are the basics right there. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna back out to the title. We're gonna go to the editor. Now this seems to be the territory where a lot of people get lost or confused. And I will admit, when I was starting out, it took me a very long time to learn how to use the editor properly. So, you're faced with all this, you don't really know what any of it means, but when you break it down, it's really just what you looked at. Everything we just looked at a minute ago, but it's all compact into one menu, into one screen. So what you want to do is go to File, and you can create new if you haven't already made the file, but I have already made my CEC birthday show file. So I'm gonna open it up, and you can see the bits I programmed here. In File, we also have Save and Save As, the same way you would do it on the little panels. And we have Analysis. You don't really need this. Import, you don't really need this. And Tools, you don't really need any of that if you're just doing the basic programming. So in the editor, yes, it is possible to program in the editor, and yes, it is possible to edit bits in the editor. So I've got my bits here, and I also have multiple camera angles I can click on right here via these camera buttons. So if I go back to the main view though, you'll notice these two buttons down here. There's a curtain button and a lights button. Now let's place your bets on what's gonna happen when I click the curtain button. Nothing, because it's broken. Oh my god. Alright, hopefully the 64th Gamers game will work for my tutorial now. So if I click the curtain button, the curtains will open. And we can turn on the tech lights here. And, just like you do from the panel. Now if we switch over to Chucky's camera here, we play the show.
Happy birthday!
You'll see the bits light up here, just like they did when we looked at that bit visualization in the panels.
Happy birthday!
So it's the same kind of thing going on here. Now, let's get into how you actually edit bits in the editor. So let's say I messed up here. I accidentally when I was programming, like that. I added some eye movements I didn't want. So if I did something like this and I wanted to remove just these, and let's say there were some other ones around it that I actually wanted to remove.
That's it?
So let's say I wanted to keep these, but I wanted to get rid of these little ones. All I want to do is right-click on these. Just right-click on them and they disappear. And now you'll notice he doesn't move his eyes there, but he moves his eyes here. Now, if I were to get rid of this,
That's it?
see how he turns his eyes? If I got rid of it,
That's it.
he no longer turns his eyes. For the second thing, if you're wondering how to create bits, all you have to do is, you'll see each movement here on the side. We've got Chuck's mouth, eyes, so on, and you can scroll down. If you don't see the movement you need here, you can hover over this area, only this area, and you can scroll down. And now you'll see all the rest of the movements. You might have to scroll for a little bit because there's big patches of nothing sometimes. Like right here, there's big patches of nothing that you got to scroll through to get to some other movements. So if you can't find it, just keep scrolling. I'm sure you will. And the reason I say only scroll in this area is because if you scroll here, you'll actually end up zooming in and out, not scrolling down. So anyway, once you've done that and you have the right movement that you need on the side here. So for instance, let's do Chucky's ears. So if we look at his left ear, you'll see it's mapped to 9. Now what that means for us is that if I press 9 on my keyboard,
That's it. Happy birthday.
his ear moves.
That's it.
That's essentially how you add bits. Now if I scroll down, when you scroll the numbers change. So if I scroll down, it's still not going to be 9. Because I've scrolled and now 9 is right arm twist. And now his left ear isn't even, okay, his left ear is 1 now. And 9 is right arm raise. So as you scroll, the numbers change. So you can't just scroll and keep the same numbers. I know I'm explaining this horribly, but hopefully if you get in the editor and you try it out for yourself, you'll understand what I'm blabbering about. Anyway, if we do head up, you'll see that is, head up is number 7 right now. So if I press and hold number 7 on my keyboard,
That's it. Happy birthday.
his head will go up. And make sure you're holding down the key. That goes for anything, editor or not. You have to hold down the key for the movement to fully trigger. You can't just tap it. Another thing to note is that you cannot use your numpad. You have to use the number keys that are above your standard letters. So now that we've got actual bit editing out of the way for the editor, you'll notice these 100, 10, 1, so on and so forth here. First of all, we can delay movements this way. So if I press -1, it moves it back by one what? I'm not sure. 1 second maybe? I really don't know what metrics it moves it by. Probably seconds, considering this is going on the audio. So if I programmed something too early, like let's say this section was programmed too early, I could press +1 to add to it, to push it forward. Or if I programmed it too late, I could use, -1 to bring it back, or even -10. Now, one thing to note is you don't want to push it back too far, because then it'll end up splitting your bits. So, if you want to push it back farther than your playhead is at, you need to move the playhead back and then keep pushing it back. You can also do the same thing by just right-clicking on the bits and clicking pad bit and the corresponding number. You can also do fill bit, which will just make it one solid bit that will stay activated the entire show, or segment rather. And then you can also do erase bit, which will erase everything in this column. So, hopefully that was a good enough explanation of the editor. I know it was very shoddy. Some other quick things to mention are, you can see the length of your show down here. Right here, since we're zoomed out, we can see 20 seconds of audio. If I played this beginning to end, just this screen, it would be 20 seconds of audio. And if I zoomed in a little more, this is only 5 seconds of audio right here. That's going the whole length. And, of course, there's more camera angles to look at. You got the whole stage view, you've got Jasper, a couple angles for each character, too. And then you, of course, have play, pause, fast forward, rewind, right here. All works the same way it works on that panel. So, I believe, also, One more thing to mention. Make sure to save before you're done in the editor. If you've made changes you want to keep, click save or save as if you want to make it a separate file. But I believe I have covered everything of note. These are all of your controls, because I didn't touch on all of these, or, you know, in case I didn't explain it clear enough, which I'm sure I did not, because this is a pretty bad tutorial, but there's all your controls. I'll just, you know, you can check on those anytime you need to. There's credits. Pretty self-explanatory. There's, you know, everyone is here. And patch notes, which are now completely useless because this game is discontinued. So I hope this helped some of the little 9-year-olds out there who are trying to figure out the RR engine. And have fun making shows. And good luck. Again, if you guys want to see a part 2, just drop a comment, leave a like, show some support, share this video around, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.